Have you ever been humming a song in your head, only to have it appear on the radio or up next on shuffle? Or perhaps you were just thinking about someone, and then you receive a text from them. Coincidences happen daily, but some coincidences are almost unbelievable. Number 5. Born on November 30th, 1835, shortly after the appearance of Halley's Comet, Mark Twain made an eerie prediction about his demise and is the center of one of the world's strangest coincidences. Twain is known around the world for his literary works such as The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. These books have become literary classics, and almost every American has at some point read or heard of these books. In 1909, Twain said, quote, "I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It's coming again next year, and I expect to go out with it. It will be the greatest disappointment of my life if I don't go out with Halley's Comet. The Almighty has said, no doubt, here are these two unaccountable freaks. They came in together, they must go out together." It should be known that Halley's Comet only appears every 76 years, and Twain showed a great deal of insight into his own mortality. And that's exactly what happened. Halley's Comet was due to pass by Earth on April 20th, 1910. Observers waited anxiously to catch a glimpse of the comet, while Twain waited patiently for his prophecy to come true. On April 21st, 1910, the news of Mark Twain's passing broke. Newspapers began reporting that Twain had passed away in Redding, Connecticut, of a heart attack. It turns out that one of Twain's predictions had come true, just as he'd been born immediately after Halley's Comet appeared in 1835. He also passed away just after it appeared again in 1910. This isn't the first time Halley's Comet was at the center of a major historical event. In 1066, William the Conqueror spotted the comet and interpreted it as a good luck sign for his pending invasion. Number 4. In 2011, the Comet family of Paris, France, were upset when they returned home after holiday to find that their roof was leaking. A leaky roof is certainly the last thing you want to come home to after a relaxing week away. But upon discovering what had caused the leak, the family were a little less disappointed. After returning home, 32-year-old Martine Comet called someone out to come fix it. As the roofer was up in the attic inspecting the roof, he noticed that a tile had been smashed, and whatever had smashed it had come from the sky. He told the Comet family, quote, "It would have had to be Superman to break a tile in this way." It was then that he discovered a small black rock nestled deep in the roof's insulation. The rock only weighed about 88 grams and was the size of an egg. The Comet family were curious to know exactly what it was and how it had smashed their roof tile, so they called in the assistance of a mineral expert, Elaine Carrion, who informed the Comet family that the rock they discovered was in fact a meteorite. The Comet family had been hit by a piece of interstellar debris, an extraordinary coincidence given their name. Carrion went on to explain that the meteorite had come from the belt of asteroids that sit between Mars and Jupiter, and its market value was about $1,000 per gram. The Comet family declined Carrion's offer to sell the piece, saying, quote, "A piece of history of space of which we know nothing, but which is fascinating, has fallen on us. It's like a fairy tale and less likely than winning the lottery, we're told." Number 3. In the weeks leading up to their wedding, Amy Maiden and Nick Wheeler were flicking through old photographs and reminiscing about the good old days. Nick and Amy had met when they were both teenagers, after Nick and his family moved from Kent to Cornwall so that Nick could attend the 6th grade there. It was in this grade that Amy and Nick met and hit it off instantly. They stayed together throughout their teenage years and into their 20s before deciding to settle down together. Little did Nick and Amy know that this wasn't the first time they'd met. While looking through old photographs, Amy and Nick both cried out in disbelief. The photo showed Nick, who was just 16 years old at the time, sitting inside of a sand sculpture, while 5-year-old Amy could be seen sitting behind him with her family. The two were completely oblivious to each other at the time, but little did they know that years later they would meet and end up getting married. The photograph was taken 11 years before the couple met, as Nick was only holidaying in Cornwall. Nick and Amy's family were in utter shock. They had no idea that all those years ago, they were sitting next to the extended family that their children would bring together through marriage. Amy told the Metro Online, quote, "It's an unbelievable coincidence, and it just confirms that I've found my soulmate. What makes it even more significant was that although I was brought up in Mousehole, Nick and his family didn't even live in Cornwall at the time. He and his family were down on holiday from Kent and didn't move permanently until a year later." In the weeks after discovering the coincidence, Nick and Amy tied the knot at a nearby church, just a small walk from where the photo had been taken all those years ago. The couple now lives happily together and have the photograph framed in their house. It's certainly going to be a good story to tell their children one day, that's for sure. Number 2. Between 1914 and 1918, Europe and much of the rest of the world were engaged in a conflict that would see the death of millions of soldiers and irreparable damage to towns and cities across Europe. Over the span of 4 years, 750,000 British soldiers lost their lives, with thousands of other soldiers coming home with physical injuries and shell shock, known today as PTSD. During and after the war, these men and their families banded together to help each other get through the difficult times that they were facing. In a bizarre coincidence, the first and last British soldiers to lose their lives as a result of World War I are buried directly across from each other. John Parr from Finchley, North London, was the first British casualty of the First World War on August 21, 1914. Finchley was shot while he was riding a bicycle ahead of his battalion to help map out the British advance on German occupying troops in the Belgian city of Mons. A cemetery called St. Symphorien Cemetery was soon created, with both German and British troops being buried there, after Belgian landowners wanted to pay their respects to the fallen soldiers on both sides. Those who have visited the cemetery describe it as eerie, but are taken aback by the beauty of the pine trees, Japanese maple, and red roses that litter the grounds. Finchley was laid to rest in the St. Symphorien Cemetery, and 4 years later, George Edwin Ellison from Leeds, who was the last British fatality of World War I, was buried right across from him. Ellison was killed a mere 90 minutes before the armistice was announced on November 11, 1918. Ellison's battalion was attempting one last advance, as they knew that peace was on the horizon, and anticipation that there would be little pushback from the German troops. Sadly, Ellison found himself in the crossfire and did not live to see the end of World War I. Ellison would be buried directly across from Finchley in 1920, after his body was transferred from a field grave to the St. Symphorien Cemetery. At first, nobody made the connection between the two plots, but historians soon cottoned on, and it became one of the most bizarre coincidences in British military history. In 2018, a plaque was placed in Leeds City Station to honor the memory of Ellison and tell his and Finchley's story. The full account of what happened to Ellison remains unknown, as the records were destroyed during the war. What we do know is that in 1912, he married Hannah Maria Bergen and went on to have a son, James Cornelius Ellison. Ellison and Finchley likely didn't know each other, but in a bizarre coincidence, they were buried just meters apart from each other, and their lives became intertwined. Number 1. On Friday the 13th, 2017, brave passengers at the Copenhagen airport boarded Flight 666 headed for Helsinki, whose airport abbreviation is HEL. Departing at 13:20, Flight 666 took to the skies for the last time before it changed from 666 to 954. People around the world held their breath, waiting to see what would happen to the flight, named after the number of the beast. This number is commonly associated as the devil's number in many religions. However, it's become widely used in pop culture too. Many people use the number when referring to the number of the beast. However, some do not believe that this is actually the number of the beast. If you look at certain translations of Revelation 13:18, it may use the number 616. The difference in the numbers can be explained by the different spellings of the Emperor Nero's name, and the numbers are used as a code. Despite which number you choose to use, the meaning behind it holds significance for a lot of people. Friday the 13th is a day steeped with superstition. It's often regarded as an unlucky day and even an evil day. The superstition surrounding Friday the 13th has never been confirmed, but many believe it goes back to biblical times, when Jesus was at the Last Supper and the 13th guest, Judas, betrayed him. Would you be brave enough to get on a flight called Flight 666 on Friday the 13th? The passengers braced themselves for takeoff, and thankfully nothing bad happened. The crew of the flight landed at Helsinki Airport, and passengers departed into Gate 26. Many have been quick to point out that the gate number is 13 plus 13, so they wonder if this was done on purpose or just yet another spooky coincidence. Despite all the sinister numbers and patterns around them, passengers had a pleasant flight and an easy departure through Helsinki Airport and onto their destination, without a little red devil appearing before them. Those aboard Flight 666 told journalists that they chose the Friday the 13th flight as it was significantly cheaper than the other flights to the same destination, most likely due to the superstitious people not wanting to tempt fate. Thankfully for everyone on board, Flight 666 landed in sunny Helsinki, and not into the flaming pits of hell. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.